back to Realize Your Potential with Mike and Travis. We are super lucky today because we've got worldwide VP of Renewals here with us today, Sabrina Hernandez. Thank you for joining our show, Sabrina. So let's jump into a little bit about who Sabrina is. So Sabrina's most important job is being a wife to Philip Garcia and a mother of two to 9-year-old Danica and 6-year-old Delina. And they are beautiful. She's also the treasurer of the PTO at her daughter's school. She's also a board member of the finance committee at her daughter's school. And for boot, she teaches Sunday schools and leads a class of 38 students in their faith journey forward. Who says you can't have it all and be the best mother and be active with your kids? I mean, that's pretty awesome, right? So, and now if we jump a little bit into her career, she actually spent the first 20 years at the same company, which is a Fortune 500 company, and she served in many roles and supported many teams across the globe. She led the company to sustained growth year over year, and her last role was as global vice president in the service organization. She led a team of 160 team members across the whole globe. And then one day, she decided, you know what? I think I'm going to take it up a notch. And so she's 35 days into a new role as the worldwide VP of Renewals at her new company, where she leads a team of roughly about 250 plus people with revenue responsibilities well over $1 billion. And she's just there to help her team grow and achieve the same goals for themselves that she helped her last team achieve at her last role. So we're really excited to have you. Thank you so much, Sabrina, for joining us.
Yeah, thank you so much.
Thank you, Travis. Happy to be here.
Yeah.
Right on. So to share out, remember, guys, we have taken you from how do I figure out how to get help? Like, how do I think about that? Sort of what are some of the techniques involved with that? And then we started to talk to those folks who are actually coaches and helping other people. We have an awesome opportunity today to talk to someone who is actually getting coaching. And that is definitely what we're going to dive into. So please don't forget, like, subscribe, comment below. It helps us out, helps our channel grow. And let's dive into questions. So, so Sabrina, talk to us a little bit about your journey and sort of, you know, how you got to the place where you are at right now.
Absolutely. So I was coming up on my 20-year anniversary at the company that I basically grew up at. And I started to think about what are the next step? What is it that I aspire to do? And to be clear, there weren't any issues. I wasn't trying to fill a void or fill a gap. I had just had a conversation with our chief revenue officer, and he was excited about me building and growing the team. We were going in a different direction that I was excited about. I was able to participate in building that strategy, but I started to do some introspection, if you will, and thinking about next steps. And again, I was happy. I knew what my purpose was at this company. I woke up every day super excited about leading the team forward, but started to think about those next steps. And I started to do some research online on just professional development and coaching and things like that. And I had lots of opportunities through the company to do coaching and professional development, but according to their plan, according to their schedule, and started to recognize I need to do something more for myself. I want to talk through things that I'm thinking about, things that I'm going through, and not just situational, not just on specific tasks or specific meetings that were on deck, but really thinking about that next step. And I have my mentors, I have my community of mentors that I reach out to probably on a weekly basis. I have my husband who I speak to all the time just about things that are happening, things that I'm experiencing. And of course, he's in my corner, he's my biggest champion. But I ended up reaching out to Travis as I learned more about Realize Now. And we had a conversation, and the first thing that struck me is when he said, your husband, your mentors are always going to be in your corner, but do you have somebody that you can talk to that's more from a neutral perspective that can really challenge you forward, right? And challenges aren't always negative things. It's how you look at them and how you build for that next step. And I signed up, and after 4 sessions, I would say, my journey into this new company that I'm at, therefore began. And it had to do with sparking a change in mindset in me. Again, there wasn't a problem. There weren't any issues. I was definitely fulfilled in my purpose of everything that I've been participating in. But as I started to think about the next steps, I recognized there was definitely something more to do. And the other thing that I'll mention here real quickly is, as a leader of an organization, and there's 2 ways to look at it. I'm a manager by title, and leader is what people decide you to be. I started thinking about, I've been at this company for coming on 20 years. Have I done enough to raise and lift the people that are part of my organization? And the answer was yes. There were many people that I believed could step into my role if I were to leave. And so that was one thing that really made me feel good about thinking of the next step, whether it was staying in the same company or moving into a different company. I recognized that folks were ready for that next step as much as I was. So it was perfect time to really step into these professional sessions with Travis and really spend the time doing the work, thinking about what that next step is.
Right on. And so as you're talking about, so what came up to me for me was one of the things you mentioned was, all right, can someone take over my role, right? So did I do effective succession planning, which, you start to get into this problem solving space around, all right, well, I'm going to be looking at these other opportunities. Like, how am I going to feel comfortable about making this decision and problem solving around it? Like, I'm wondering if you could share with us a little bit more about sort of other things that you had to consider as you're problem solving, right? Because it's not just leaving an organization. It's like, I'm sure you had relationships there with people, right? Like, you were there 20 years, right? And so I was wondering if there's any lessons learned there, if you reflect back on that experience that sort of helped with sort of being okay with your transition, right?
So when you step into a leadership role, or when you're responsible for the hiring, right, and managing of an organization, its people, the number one job, and this is interesting, I would say probably about 15 years ago, one of my direct line managers and mentors today basically said, the most important thing when it comes to hiring that you have to keep in mind is that you hire someone that can do the job better than you. And that's interesting because people sometimes don't want to think that their team members are better than them because they think there's, could potentially be conflict, or they could potentially take their job at some point. And my boss had said, I invite you to take my job because I don't plan to be here forever. So I'm hiring you, Sabrina, because you can get this specific job done better than I can. And I'm here to build the best team so that when it comes time, and I always take it back to the analogy of sports, right? The coach isn't necessarily the best player on the field, and hopefully they're not, right? Because they're deciding on the people that can play the sport the best, right? And so we said, think about that dynamic when you're hiring in the corporate world. You want to bring people on your team that are better than you because they're not doing their job. They're being hired to do their own job. And so as I started to think about that, throughout my career, I did have to take myself out of the equation and look for the people that had the right, solid capabilities, experience. And as I started to think about that next step, it was also a reflection on my team, right? Do I have strong players on my team? Are the managers ready to step up, right? Step in and lead this organization forward? And the answer was yes. The other thing I'll say is being a leader is not just about managing the work, right? It's about, and again, you're hiring the people that can get the job done. So you shouldn't even have to talk to them about getting their job. They know what they need to do, right? They're coming to you for coaching and guidance in terms of navigating their way through the organization, influencing upwards, right? And you're bringing them into that elevator to move on up. So a lot of what happened over the last several years is just really connecting with them on a human basis, right? And just how are you doing? How can I help you? You don't start with, I need you to, right? You need to go and do, if you're hiring the right people, again, they already know what they need to do. They should already be thinking about the next steps and coming to you to have that discussion and bounce ideas off. So again, a lot of what happened over the last several years is just building relationships with these people on a deeper basis and figuring out what my role was to grow them, making sure that they were in the right training sessions, making sure that I understood what they were doing and that I was actually learning. What I realized in the last 5 years, I'll say, with most of my leads, anytime that I spoke to them, I was learning, right? I was learning about technology. I was learning about digital approaches. I was learning about IoT and automation and all of that. That wasn't me bringing that to the table. That was my team bringing that to the table and me recognizing I am learning so much and picking up from my team. And again, that's where most of my purpose was served, but it was not me telling them what to do. And that's where I recognized, right, I had even matured in my approach to business and in my approach to my role. My role was not telling them what to do. My role was getting them prepared for the next step as much as my leadership team and management team was getting me prepared. And again, that made me recognize, wow, I have been doing my job, right? We've been getting our job done for the purpose of, you know, our targets and revenue and things like that. I mean, that's what we get paid for. That's our job. But as a leader, I recognize, wow, I really have been spending a lot of time offering up myself to the team. And I'll share this with you. When I gave my notice at this company, within a week, I literally went through a whole box of Kleenex because people were calling me in tears and did not want me to go. And I realized it wasn't about necessarily the work that I was doing. It had to do with how I was supporting the team and how we were getting work done. So tough to leave a company when you've been there for 20 years, but it definitely was time for me.
What a story. And, you know, Sabrina, obviously I've got to go on this part of your journey with you, which has been amazing. But I think it would be really interesting to explain to our viewers the idea around the mechanics, I should say, around making the decision to really get coaching, and what were the challenges in looking into that? What was the positives? Because when most people are probably watching this, they're probably looking at you going, wow, you're a global VP, you had employees all around the world. You were probably 2 or 3 steps away from their dream job. Like, you had ascended 2 or 3 steps away from what they would consider to be their dream opportunity, right? And you decided that just you were ready for something else. You were ready for even more. If you could take our viewers kind of through that process. I know you did talk a little bit about reaching out and why you reached out to Realize Now, but kind of take us through what that decision-making process was. How did you validate the fact that you were going to spend, you know, a good amount of money on coaching yourself, and knowing that you were already at a certain level of success, humbling yourself to say, man, I probably need help to go to the next level. So if you could talk us through some of those things, I think that'd be really interesting for our viewers to hear.
Yeah, so honestly, in our first session, Travis, as I mentioned, the coaching is not necessarily about a specific task or meeting or anything like that. But I did reach out because I was nervous. So I'll talk about kind of things leading up to it, but just want to give this one example. There was a meeting on deck that was coming up where I was presenting to our president of the company. And I had a good working relationship with him, supported him in different aspects of the job, directly, indirectly, etc. Meaning I supported him on projects, I supported him on the business, things like that. But there was a meeting that was coming up and I was nervous about it. And I didn't know why, right? Why am I nervous? I do this all the time. I present in front of large crowds, travel all around the world, but I had this innate insecurity, if you will, and was very nervous. And I didn't know how to approach that with anyone, right? Again, talking to my husband, he would say, "Oh, honey, it's fine. You'll get over it. You're great. You're the best at what you do.
Great husband.
You know that.
Great husband.
Or,
great husband. Yeah,
right? Amazing. Or talking to my mentors, right? And same thing, right? You're amazing. You're best in class. You're this. You're that. And it was difficult for me to really land on that idea and work through it, right? I kept getting the cheerleaders on the side, and I needed something a bit different. I needed somebody that can, when we met Travis, you started asking me questions. Why do you feel that way, right? What has your journey been? And not even necessarily about work, right? Does it have to do with the pandemic, right? I used to travel every month. I was almost somewhere in a different part of the world. And it's different being in front of somebody than it is being on Zoom all day. What was it? And we got to work through it. You asked me a lot of questions, and I spent that week really thinking about, why am I here? Why am I feeling this way? And another thing that we talked about is, you had said, you've obviously done the prep work that you need to have a successful conversation or meeting with your president, right? You know what he's looking for. You know what to prepare in terms of a presentation, but have you thought about what's the most important thing that your president should be thinking when you leave that meeting, right? And that was kind of an aha moment, right? Because 20 years of experience and my education and everything, yes, I can go in there and knock that meeting out the park. I'll get the job done. I've proved that year in and year out, but I never really thought about, what should he be thinking about after we're done with that meeting? And what we arrived at in that session that we had is, my president needed to think, you know what, Sabrina is the one. I need Sabrina in the organization so we can fill in the blank, right? So we can become more successful, so we can grow the business. And even for him to say, so I can get my bonus check, right? Where I need Sabrina on the team. And I've never really thought through things like that deeply. I've been one that's just, tell me what I need to do and I'm going to go do it, right? Tell me, and I'm going to think ahead, right? I'm going to try to do more. I'm going to try to think about the next steps. That's another thing that a mentor had told me years back. He said, be that person in the room that when the boss says, we should be thinking about doing this, you're going to come in and say, hey, we've already started doing it. Let me share this with you, right? So it was that one meeting, and I think that insecurity wasn't necessarily that I couldn't do the job. It was more really unsure, right? Of just, I'm in front of the president. I know what I can do. What is it that I want him to think about? But it was also recognizing something different was happening inside me. Something different of, I need to grow. I need to do something different. And I had just changed my job a year and a half prior. But I was already at that point of, I've done the things that they've asked me to do, right? I've grown the business. We're working through these strategies that are bringing in new ideas and new concepts into the business, but those people are ready to lead. What's for me? And so you helped me think through a lot of that. And again, going back to, why did I do all of this? Why did I sign up for the coaching sessions? It's because I knew, it's almost another analogy. It's like being in the gym, right? I show up, I work out every day, but I knew that there was something that could take me to the next step to help my thinking process be more effective, kind of like using the weights, using the elliptical, and understanding, right, what is it specifically that I needed to work on, and I needed support with that. And so that is why I signed up, and I renewed. I'm VP of renewals. I renewed my contract with you, so you've done your job.
Yeah, we got another renewal coming up soon, I hope. Absolutely.
Right on. That's great information.
So I think another question I have for you is, as people are watching this, like, there are a lot of factors that go into why they don't have a coach, right? Cost, time. You talked a little bit about value, right? Like, what's the value and how it can impact me. But I think a lot of times it's just fear, and that's tough for, I think, people to walk through and be vulnerable and say, hey, I don't know all the answers to where I'm at, and I could use someone to help guide me through that. Well, how'd you deal with those things, right? As in the decision-making process, like, how did you deal with all of the three things we talked about, cost or time, or, it sounds like you understood that you did need some assistance, so maybe not that part as much, but, how do you deal with those things, I would say?
So I'll start off with saying being a mother, a wife, you tend to put yourself last, right? Or even, being whatever it is, feeling like a father, you tend to put yourself last when you're responsible for other people. So for me, it was my children, my husband, etc. He might argue that I do put myself in front of him, but that's not true. So I started thinking about what is it that is important to me? Am I spending the right time? And am I investing in myself, right? We invest in our kids and their education and sports. We make sure they have a well-rounded experience, and we do our best to raise them up to be, hopefully, right, people that contribute in society and, are all about making the right choices and things like that. My husband, same thing, right? He does things, fantasy football and all of that, which I will say is an investment. But we think about the things that are important to us. And I started to think about, well, what is it that I'm doing for me, right? What am I investing in? I was spending a lot of time reading books. I was spending a lot of time doing research, right, on the internet at night, right? Before I go to sleep, I spend probably about an hour just researching and studying. I have a notebook of things. It's right here where I'll write down acronyms or things that I hear throughout the day, and at the end of my day I go research what it all is. But I didn't have anything that was like structured, and I'm one that likes structure. I like I kind of wake up at the same time. I have the same routine in the mornings. I have to drink that first cup of coffee before my meetings, and I have meetings throughout the day. I have meetings at 4 a.m., at 8 p.m. It's all over the place. And so I have to really be structured in my day to make sure my time is very intentional, and that I stay on track, right? Again, cooking dinner, talking to somebody in Korea, and moving on to bedtime and reading books, and then my next meeting in China and whatnot. So making sure that my time is spent wisely, intentional, etc. So when I started to think about myself and how I was spending my time, that was the most unstructured part of my day. I'd have to go find things. I'd have to go look at my list of things. But I'd spend a lot of time kind of figuring out where to start and where I wanted to go. And so again, when I started to think about the coaching, that's when I recognized I need that. I need somebody that I can have these discussions with. I mean, Travis, you were giving me assignments also. You were saying, you have this meeting with your president coming up. Is there an agenda? Do you know what you're working on? And you said, over this week, I want you to send an email direct to your president, let him know what you've started to work on, and ask him if it's going down the direction that he's looking for. And I'm like, shoot, you want me to do what? And you want me to send him an email? I mean, yes, I know him, but you're asking me to reach out to him directly. And I never thought of that before, in terms of I would spend hours preparing, right? Putting a presentation together. And I was one that would try to memorize everything, so I just wasn't reading from, screen. And I did the homework, right? First, I talked to my husband about it, and he said, that's a great idea. Why wouldn't you do that before you spend all these hours to make sure that it is down the path that he's looking to do? And again, it was more of me getting out of my comfort zone and reaching out to him and opening up that conversation. By the way, when we had that first meeting, he said, Sabrina, thank you for reaching out. That doesn't usually happen. And that helped me recognize that when we are in this meeting together, that we're going to get the things done that I was looking to get done, right? So that was a great opening to the meeting that we had. But yeah, so I started to think about, how am I investing in myself? Where and how am I spending my time? I know that I was spending a lot of time in trying to focus on professional development and that next step, but that the coaching sessions is what helped me to really hone in on the things that I really do need to be thinking about. We talked about like my resume. We talked about what it was that I was doing in terms of the next step. And we also talked about updating my LinkedIn profile, right? I hadn't looked at that for the longest of time. I didn't know that I was closed off to recruiters reaching out to me. And that was another simple step. I went in and I updated my my profile on LinkedIn that said, yeah, I'm open. I didn't know what that meant. I didn't know if anyone was going to reach out. And Travis, that is exactly what happened. Within 12 hours, within 12 hours of me updating, I got an email from the executive recruiter at this other company. And there went the journey.
There you go. So for all our folks out watching this, if you can give them words of encouragement, if they're on the fence around reaching out to a coach, what would that be? Just do it.
If I would say if you are ready for the next step or even thinking about it, then the first step is to sign up for a coach, right? It provides that opportunity and that space to really just dive into what you're thinking. And the unique thing, so Travis, that was the other thing I want to share. The unique thing about these sessions, in the beginning, I thought that you were going to come with this plan. I thought you were going to say, here's what we're going to talk about. Here are the steps. And really what it is no, what is it that you want to talk about? And sometimes that's the most uncomfortable thing, to dive in and recognize, shoot, yeah, this is what I want to talk about, but I've never talked to anybody about it except myself. And that's where I started sharing with you. I'm just feeling insecure for some reason, and or I'm not really sure what that next step means. I don't know if it's a new job. I don't know if it's a promotion. I don't know. I'm good. I'm happy. So that's the other thing. People are like, I can't believe you have a coach, Sabrina. Like, you're successful, you're happy. You always have that opportunity. And so why did you do that? And that's where I said, I have to invest in myself to make sure that I'm part of building my path forward, and not just waiting for somebody to say, here you go. It's actually going after it and being ready. So that's what coaching, at least for me, assisted me in stepping into that next step. And I was ready, right? When they reached out, I'm like, all right, here we go. The journey's beginning again. So yeah, just do it. That's correct, Mike.
There you go. Right on.
I mean, I know this episode is really focused on coaching, but to have someone with your level of success on the show is awesome, you know, and it's amazing. So what can you give people who are looking and going, gosh, one day I'd love to be a worldwide vice president of renewals, right? And be responsible for, you know, $1 billion in revenue. Like, that would be awesome, right? Can you give them one or two tidbits, things that they can take away to say, yep, I can action that today, and that will put me on the path to being, you know, at a higher level in my position, whether they're going for like a manager promotion or just want to be the top sales rep, or are they looking for an executive level promotion? What are maybe 1, 2, or even 3 things that you could say, hey, focus on these things and it'll put them on the path?
So one of the things that has come up in the videos, because I do like and I do subscribe,
yes, you do.
Obviously.
Yes, you do.
But one of the things that has come up in several of the videos is just the community of people that you're around. So I've had to take inventory, right, over the years. And it doesn't mean that people are less than or I'm better than anyone or anything like that, but it's who are part of my community of people, including my coach, Travis, right? I had to question, who am I spending my time with? What types of conversations are we having? And you can parse it up where you have your friends from, if you're part of a church or a club or things like that, right? You have those people. You have the people probably from if you have children, from their school and things like that. And then my question was, but who am I spending time with, right? Who am I reaching out to? Who am I? And again, that's where I recognize you, my coach, Travis, along with other people in my community that I could aspire to be like. And it's not just looking at their role, their title, you know, their compensation, things like that, but the type of people that I surround myself with that inspire me to keep pushing myself forward. So that's one thing, right? You want to be with somebody that is constantly just interested in you, interested in your success, and having those discussions to help you continue to think forward. hopefully your number one is your spouse, right? Or a best friend, even your family. My sister is one of those people as well. We used to work together, and so we just would bounce things off of each other. And again, not just about the task, but how do I approach this, or why am I uncomfortable about this? And having that network of people to really work your way forward in your career. Number two, and it's what I tell my team all of the time, never stop learning. Always be interested in learning and understanding and researching, right? There's some people that I'll say an acronym, right? IoT, and they're shaking their head and a lot. Do you know what that means? They're like, no. Well, then you should be writing that down, or you should be raising your hand asking what that means, which, by the way, it's Internet of Things. So you want to keep learning. And so for me, like I said, I carry this notebook around, and I'm constantly just writing things. In fact, there's a new guy that I work for. He's the COO, one of the most intelligent people that I know. This guy, every time I talk to him, he says a different word that I'm like, I have no clue what you just said. I'm pulling up Webster.com right now. So, and don't be afraid to let people know that you don't know something, right? I don't know this. I don't understand this. Can you run that by me again? Be interested in your own education, right? That has to continue. Just because you're out of school doesn't mean your learning ends. And then the final thing I'll say is just, what are you doing to build yourself forward? Going back to that gym, right, example. You can go into the gym and keep riding that elliptical, but there are so many other tools in that gym for you to take advantage of, and you're going to need somebody to help you learn your way through, and that's where coaching comes into play, right? To help you learn your way forward. Doesn't necessarily have to be about a promotion or making more money or anything like that. Sometimes it could just be recognizing your purpose, right? Am I in the right job? Am I doing the right thing? And even through these coaching sessions, Travis, that's where I recognize, like, oh my goodness, I have been so fortunate to go down this path and build a career that I am totally in love with and I find purpose in every day. But I'm also not afraid if I reach that point where there is no purpose, then I probably will need to make a change, which is why I will continue to renew with you, because I need that coaching as I continue forward in my career. My boss on the first day that I started, he had said, you know what, Sabrina, the person that we think you are, you're not going to be in your job more than 2 years. And 10 years ago, I would have thought that was a threat. I would have thought, oh shoot, like I'm going to be fired. And now I'm to the point of, okay, who do I need to uplift, right? Who do I need to show the ropes and educate and make sure they understand what's required of this role, so I can already think on the next. And as I meet people in the new organization, I'm already thinking, what I want to do what they're doing, right? And what is it that I need to learn to do what they're doing in 2 years? So that's what I would share, right? Who you spend your time with. Coaching, I think, is extremely important. And then not being afraid to learn. Keep learning, keep building yourself, keep growing yourself. I think that's the most important.
There you go.
Well, I mean, I don't think we can end on a better note than that. Sabrina, thank you for joining the show. And thank you also for just being an amazing person and coming into our lives. I mean, it was funny. I talked to my cousin, and he watches our show, and he's like, wow, all these people are in your inner circle, right? Like, this is pretty amazing. And I think it really speaks to what you talked about, is just who you surround yourself with. And lucky to have you. I'm super lucky to have somebody like Mike in my life, because he helps to balance out the things I need, and he's always there for me, just like he is on these videos for everyone else. He's there for me, right? And he just
keep it up. I'm gonna give you a raise.
And so just really
wait. Who pays who?
Oh yeah. Who's in? I don't know. So I think we're just really lucky. And so, thank you for joining the show. As Mike said earlier,
really appreciate it.
Thank you so much for the opportunity.
And as Mike said earlier, just like, share, and subscribe. Please go back and watch. There were tons of nuggets. We have them on the screen right now. Write them down. Put them in your Realize Now notebook, which I think we're gonna get one of those, Mike. We're gonna get a Realize Now notebook and get it out there sometime. Get some swag going. But write it down. Write down some of these tips. They are brilliant. And we are so excited to have you for next week. So join us next week, just like you did this week, and we'll talk to you guys soon.